Hello everyone and welcome to another weekly recap. It's been a pretty slow week. We're at the end of the regular season. We just had our last regular season matches and that is done and dusted. We only have the Western play-ins and we'll be talking about those in just a little bit. We got the Western play-ins coming up this weekend and then after that I think there's a week break and then we have the playoffs. So there's going to be a lot coming. I'm really excited for the playoffs out in Anaheim. It's going to be a really fun event. The desk will be there. There's going to be so many fun things happening. It's going to be cool to have a live crowd, be on a stage, all that kind of stuff. It has not happened since 2019. Or well, I guess you can say 2019 since we had like a playoffs in a live event. Obviously, we've had some homestands from bits and pieces, but no like big matches, like the big playoffs, end of season type of thing. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Make sure to be there. Check it out if you can make it out to Anaheim. It'd be awesome to see you. Make sure to get your tickets. But let's talk about some Overwatch 2 stuff because, the Overwatch League, very slow weekend, as I said, we're at the end of it. So let's talk about Overwatch 2. I think Overwatch 2 has had a more successful launch than any of us could have ever expected. Obviously, it can't be incredibly successful with how the launch went. It was probably one of the worst launches that I've seen of a live service game in a while, which is really disappointing because I thought they would be able to clear that quite easily with all the servers. But I think they just weren't expecting the number of people to be playing. They also were not really expecting the DDoS attacks that happened and it didn't seem like they were as prepared for those. But there's been some really cool things that have happened. I don't have the tweet up. Actually, let's try and find it real quick because there was a really cool milestone that was hit for Overwatch in the first in the first 10 days of Overwatch 2 being released. 25 million players jumped into Overwatch 2, which is an extremely big number. It's really awesome. There's been tons of statistics coming out about how like Overwatch has been breaking a lot of records for itself, but also other games. But yeah, it's been awesome to see Overwatch become mainstream in a lot of ways. We have been the butt of a lot of jokes over the last few years of Overwatch is dead, the game sucks, all that kind of stuff, which weren't technically wrong, but it's cool to be able to see a lot of these big people and streamers and just casual people enjoying it. I assume you are like me, where I've had a lot of friends who are like, let's play Overwatch, and I'm like, I've been saying this for years, let's play Overwatch, and finally someone wants to play with me. So obviously going to free to play has allowed a lot of people to jump into the game, have a lot of fun with it. But also, big streamers have been picking it up. Obviously, these numbers are inflated by, we have drops currently going right now on Twitch. You can get the Kiriko skin that just ended, and now you can get the donut. So they're doing a good job of marketing the game and incentivizing people to stream it and to watch it. So if you want to come get your donut charm, come hang out on my Twitch channel. See you there, twitch.tv/Custa. But a big thing about it as well is, a lot of big streamers have been playing it. We got Seagull, we got ML7's been popping off like crazy. There, XQC has been playing it. We had Lyric's been playing Overwatch 2. A lot of these big variety streamers have really been messing around with it, having a lot of fun with it. Shroud's been playing. Like there's a lot of people who have really been playing, and a lot of the regular guys who have been streaming for a very long time. We got Flats with 4K viewers. We got Emon with 5K viewers. Awesome to see the category and the game alive. So lots of exciting things to come. Obviously, we'll see as the game, my biggest hopefulness for the Overwatch 2 was it needs to be a live service game, and in 1 year it needs to feel like it is still fresh, like they're adding new content, and they've promised that there is a content plan for that. It seems like a good idea and it has been working, but only time will really tell how successful that will be in the long run. So hopefully we keep it running, everything starts looking better. We even got a bump in viewership in Overwatch League with no incentives, with us being on YouTube, with not a lot of things pushing people to the league. We had like 40K viewers, 45K viewers on end of season, regular season matches, which is kind of crazy. Like we haven't really had those level of numbers. So you're already starting to see impact move into the Overwatch League, which is what we all care about here. So here we go, end of regular season. Let's sort of talk about the Overwatch League and what happened this upcoming weekend. Let me open my pickup, sorry, real quick. I'm not really going to talk too much about the matches. This weekend's matches were very uninteresting for the most part. We had the APAC region play-ins happen. I don't know where I can get a good graphic of that. But let's talk about the Western region first. We had some interesting things. The London Spitfire defeated the New York Excelsior 3-0 and also lost to the Shock, but they locked in their number 6 seed with just that one win over the New York Excelsior, so they are guaranteed going to the playoffs. You got to put a lot of respect on this London Spitfire team, what they have accomplished considering where they started last year, and with not massive overhauling changes to their roster. You got to respect what Christopher has done with this team. We had the San Francisco Shock beat down the Paris Eternal. Paris not really having a great final weekend. Also lost to the Boston Uprising. Unfortunately, not able to get a win with their new roster. But we were just reading an article, interestingly enough, that came out from Avala and Faustus from the Paris Eternal that said they are planning moving into 2023 to keep somewhat the same players for next year. So that would be cool to see these guys get another opportunity. With that said, I would like to see them look and try and find some really big heavy hitter players that they can use to fill in some of their holes of their roster, because right now, even if all of their players went to full strength, their top tier synergy, I don't think they would be easily able to break out of like the bottom end of the league. I don't obviously think they would get way more wins than they're currently getting right now, but I don't think they would be a contender for anything major. Toronto Defiant coming out and still disappointing the fans, going perfectly mid in this season, going 12-12 after a loss to Florida Mayhem. And Florida look very good right now in this current meta. Hydron's playing very well on that Sojin. It's honestly, someone's being able to play that Zaya. They're playing the right things. I think they will be one of the teams to look out for in the play-ins. But the Toronto Defiant then went on to beat the Houston Outlaws. The Houston Outlaws just decided to suck, I guess. I don't really know. I put them number 1 in my power rankings last weekend, and then Dante was like, and the Houston Outlaws were like, hold my beer. So they just didn't look great. I think there is a lot of assumptions that they weren't really practicing for this meta. They were already locked in with their seeding pretty much. They didn't have anything to play for with these matches, so maybe not even scrimming the current patch, not being prepared, not really caring about these matches. But they fell to the Florida Mayhem 3-1, and the Toronto Defiant got over them 3-1 as well. So, it's interesting. New York Excelsior also went 0-2 this weekend to close out their season. Talent is there, but honestly, just an incredibly disappointing season. They went 420, blaze it. I saw Liz caught me say 420 on broadcast. I couldn't say blaze it at the time, though. New York Excelsior, just with the quality of players they have on their roster, they should have been able to go better than 4-20. It's actually one of the more disappointing teams and rosters to go out throughout this season. Boston Uprising going 2-0 this weekend, looking good in the Zaya meta, but I don't think they were really challenged playing against New York Excelsior and the Paris Eternal. London Spitfire and the San Francisco Shock had a very close match. The Shock still trying to make Mikey work, which I really don't understand. Mikey's just not being able to get anything done on that wrecking ball. Like the last 2 stages, every time he comes out on that wrecking ball, it just doesn't feel good. Most importantly, and this might have implications going into the playoffs, London is playing a lot of rush, which I'm still not sold on if it's really good, but it is definitely going to push people off guard, and it's sort of their ace up their sleeve that they can throw at people at any point, or people need to be afraid of. But they have shown the ability to play other compositions. We didn't see any Poco this weekend, which I was surprised by. I thought maybe they might lean into more some Poco Zaya, Landon Baptiste, stuff like that, but we didn't see any of that. So that was kind of this weekend. As I said, a lot of these matches didn't have a lot of implications throughout the weekend, so there weren't any really hype, cool matches, but the writing is on the wall for a lot of these teams. The big standout things for me was Houston Outlaws going 0-2 and Florida Mayhem playing incredibly well. Those were really the big things for me. So let's talk about the play-ins, because after this, the play-in... Oh, not that one. The play-ins are happening this weekend on October 21st. We have the Florida Mayhem taking on the Boston Uprising in the first round, and then the Toronto Defiant versus the Washington Justice. And honestly, this weekend is just going to be a shit show. I cannot tell you one way or the other who is going to make it out of play-ins. Florida Mayhem are peaking at all the right time and always play well in playoff matches. Boston Uprising are also just went 2-0 this weekend. Punk on that Zaya. It looks like they have everything together. Seeker's playing very well on that Sojin. Can he be that sort of catalyst to success? Toronto Defiant just had a terrible weekend, but then losing to Florida Mayhem, a team that they're probably going to need to beat to get into play-ins, but then beat the Houston Outlaws. They are also recovering off of COVID. Toronto Defiant players got COVID. They've been trying to deal with that. They've spoken very publicly about it. So maybe when they're in full form, they will actually be in a lot better spot, you know, with Hoppo on that Zaya going very aggressive, playing his style. And then it's the Washington Justice. You can never count out the Washington Justice. It doesn't seem like a Sombra meta is going to be the thing to play for, which might hurt them a little bit. But still, I can absolutely see Decay just going absolutely freaking sicko mode on that Sojin, and everything that we think we know doesn't matter. So I think you can make a case for all 4 of these teams. It is double elimination, so if you lose the first round, you will be able to play the loser of the other match. Then you'll go into the winners bracket to hopefully advance to the playoffs. So personally, there is no pick'ems right now for the play-ins. I don't know if that is going to go up, when that will go up. I don't think there was one for APAC, so they might not just do one. If I was a betting man and I was putting my money on who I think is going to make it out of pick'ems, I'm going to go with the Florida Mayhem and the Washington Justice. I think I'm most confident in Florida Mayhem, and then something just tells me that Washington Justice is just going to hit another gear. And they're gonna play well. Boston Uprising and Toronto have been too inconsistent for my liking. Obviously they went 2-0 this weekend, but that was to New York Excelsior and Paris Eternal. So as I said, it's throwing darts at a board. So, you know, let me know in the comment section below who you guys think is gonna make it out of play-ins, because there's, as I said, you could say anything and I would believe you at this point. So curious to see what you guys think. So let's talk about the APAC region. I don't have a graphic up for this, but the Hangzhou Spark, the Guangzhou Charge, and the Chengdu Hunters all played matches this weekend for the Eastern region play-ins. The Guangzhou Charge went 2-0 up against the Chengdu Hunters. And then they threw. It was so bad, dude. Like, they just couldn't deal with the Gaga Winston. It was just too much. Leave and Jinmu just taking over. And it didn't feel like they had the flexibility with Piggy on that Zaya, like, and some of the maps didn't go their way. They should have won a couple of these maps, but unfortunately just falling away from the support line was always dead. And that was the problem, is that it just felt like when they went to the Winston, they just could not answer back on how to keep their backline alive, how to just sort of keep playing their game. And then we had the Hangzhou Spark go up against the Chengdu Hunters, and the Hangzhou Spark are back. Apparently, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Hangzhou Spark played a very good weekend of games. Pineapple playing that Tracer, just freeing up Shy to play the Sojin, and they've sort of gone on the Shy go kill meta right now, where they just nano Shy overclocks and just kills fucking everybody. And it feels like Sojin potentially could be that in the playoffs. And we saw what he did in the mid-season madness when that was the case. So there is some good signs for the Hangzhou Spark, because it is kind of the mid-season madness meta, right? With the Winston, with the Annas and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. Hangzhou Spark might be feeling a lot more comfortable after going, 2-12 in the regular season in the last 2 stages. So they could also suck. They could make it to the playoffs. It'd just not be their meta, and they just don't do anything interesting. So, also, quick update on the Philadelphia Fusion with Zest. We haven't really heard too much from him. He uploaded a picture recently of him in a pretty serious cast. Like, not really a cast, like a brace. So, we haven't heard anything definitive of if he will be playing or if he won't be playing with his injury. It would be a big negative for the Philadelphia Fusion if Zest couldn't play. He has been probably their best player throughout the entirety of the season. Carpe did play well on the Tracer. Okay, I'll give you that. He played well on the Tracer in their last couple of matches. But do I think Carpe is going to cut the mustard against the best teams in the playoffs? I'm not sold. It would definitely be big for them to be able to play Zest. And that's sort of it for the week. I do want to do my power rankings, but let's have a final look at the standings for the season. Big things that pop out to you as soon as you look at it. Atlanta Reign being incredibly inconsistent in the regular season once again, but it's playoffs, baby. Anything is possible for Atlanta Reign when they make the playoffs. The London Spitfire obviously having a great season. I've already talked about that. Impressed with the Houston Outlaws to be able to lock in that number 4 seed. As much as that's where a lot of us predicted them to be, it was cool of them to be able to sort of deliver on a promise to their fans that, like, hey, we're actually a good team. Now they just need to deliver on the promise of being good in the playoffs because they have still yet to come up to that one. They have still yet to be able to prove that they can win matches that really, really matter because in the playoffs, they have just been disappointing. Paris Eternal going from an 8-8 season to a 1-23. It's this team kind of exploded. New York Excelsior, I talked about the talent is there. They should never have been 4-20. Vancouver Titans, we knew that they were going to be a weak-ish roster, but I think 5-19, they're not happy with everything that happened throughout the season. In the East, honestly, it's just been as chaotic as we thought it is. Shanghai Dragons, I think, have been good, and I think we underestimate the Shanghai Dragons just because of their playoffs performances. But impressive to see Seoul Dynasty and the Los Angeles Gladiators both have very good seasons. There have been franchises that have promised success so much throughout their Overwatch League careers, and they've never really been able to do that. They both won a stage. They both had big ups and downs. So we'll see how they do in the playoffs when push comes to shove. Los Angeles Valiant, I don't want to talk about that team. Chengdu Hunters as well with another disappointing season. Coming off of last season when they had leave, they had good playoffs. They were consistent. Them losing a Pritter, losing some of their backline, I think really hurt them in the longevity and the long-term success of this team. So we are going in to the playoffs though. So let's move on. This was my power rankings for last weekend. So let's talk about this first. Houston Outlaws at 1. In my defense, Houston Outlaws just beat Dallas Fuel, who I am still pretty convinced are the number 1 seed in the West right now, just with how they're performing on the current patch. So I had to put Houston at number 1, okay? Listen to me, chat. I had to. It just had to happen. I had to put London at number 1. Houston at number 1, sorry. So, yes, we can all agree they went 0-2 this weekend. They did not look good. But I'm hopeful that that was just because they weren't caring. But even on that matter, I think we need to move the Houston Outlaws down. I think with that, with the Dallas Fuel losing that last match, they didn't play this weekend, but I'm actually going to do this. I think I'm going to put all of these guys up here. It's important to know we do not know what the patch is going to be for the playoffs just yet. So it's very hard to do a power rankings, but we're going to do this. Let me actually go. We're going to do a single ranking because we're all coming together. Let's get these teams out of here that are not in the playoffs. Shanghai, Vancouver, Paris, New York, Los Angeles Valiant, Guangzhou, rip. So we got... Let's go down to the bottom. Toronto, no, not Dallas. Boston, Toronto, Washington, and Florida. I've already said that I think Florida is my favorite to make it out of that group. I think Toronto is my least likely to make it out of the group. I haven't been sold on the way that they're playing. Yes, they have a great team. Yes, they have their moments, but I just have not been sold. I think I've been more impressive to see Boston. Yes, 2 do go out. So, but my money is on Florida and Washington. But as I said, it really comes down to who shows up on the weekend. Toronto could show up and decide that they're good again. Same thing. Florida could show up and decide that they suck again. So yeah, that with the COVID over the past week, maybe not being able to get effective practice, I'm going to use that against them. So right now, let's do our power rankings. I think I want to have Dallas Fuel at number 1, followed by Seoul Dynasty, and then the Gladiators, and then Shanghai, then the Shock. Who do I like more, Shanghai or Shock? Is there a world in which I do this? And then... What do we think? Do we think there's a tier break between Shanghai, Shock, and Atlanta? I don't know if there is. Atlanta out? Yeah, I think that's fair, but it's the playoffs. Like... Dragons over Shock. Yeah, I definitely think it's Dragons over Shock. Shock have not made me feel comfortable this stage. Like, I don't feel good about the stage. And if I don't expect, especially because the developers have already come out in a dev blog and said we're pretty happy with the balance of the game. it doesn't seem like they're going to come out and do any massively sweeping changes to like any characters. So for me, it feels like we're not going to see a dramatic change in the meta. Fusion going to get second place? No, Fusion have to stay here because they're in the playoffs. Overrating Houston, and that's it. All right, chat. How do we want to do this playoff? How do we want to do our playoffs bracket? Because do we want to just go with how I genuinely think they're going to perform in the playoffs? Because that's how we should do it, right? Because if that's true, I need to fuck with my board. Because if we're going for playoffs, I'm not going to just go off current performances. I'm going to go off of who I think is going to do well in the playoffs, okay? I'm going to take out tier breaks then. Because I don't want to put tier breaks in. I don't think there is that big of a difference between all of these teams. Maybe do a Vise one, then do next week with the patch. We'll change it next week with the patch. How about we do that? We're going to take out the tier breaks. I think Dallas Fuel is the team that I'm most confident with any patch that it's going to be fine. Same with Seoul Dynasty, same with the Gladiators, okay? So I actually like having them here. Shanghai Dragons, I am worried if we do not hit a Genji meta. If we do not hit a Genji meta, I'm not sold that the Shanghai Dragons are going to be good. San Francisco Shock have shown a weakness in this current meta, especially with keep trying to play Kalush. I'm going to put Atlanta over Houston just because Houston have been way worse in the playoffs than Atlanta have. And I think Atlanta could be a sleeper pick to go deep because that's what they always do. But I don't think I can put Atlanta over the Shock. Philly always shows up in playoffs. Yeah, I think I'm going to put Philly over here. I'm actually going to put Spark last. I don't think Spark is going to be able to replicate what they just did. But I think I want to put London over them. Like, this feels like the classic Hongzhou Spark, like, perform really well to make it to playoffs, and we're like, pause champ, and then they just suck. And we're like, well, that sucked. So I'm going to leave it like this. This is where I genuinely think everyone's at. Let's put these guys. Speaking of teams who have never not fucked up, why believe in the Outlaws? Well, the Outlaws are actually quite low in comparison to where you potentially could put them. Like, I think even if the Outlaws fuck up, I think coming like 7th or 8th is not good for them, right? Like, they have a good roster. If they go 7th or 8th, that'll be disappointing for them, I think. Boston over Toronto? Yeah, I'm not in love with Toronto right now. Doing better than those three teams is not high praise. Yeah, like being better than Philly, London, and Hongzhou isn't wild, right? Like Philly and Hongzhou are just fucking wild cards. And London Spitfire, I think they're good and they could go on a deep run, especially I think if they can find a place in which they can play the Rhine Rush. If we go into a meta where the Rhine Rush works on a couple of maps and they're able to sort of like throw that curveball at people from time to time, it'll be very good for the London Spitfire. But I think if we end up in like a Winston meta, like if we just end up in like a Winston Sombra meta or something like that, or, you know, like Sojin becomes like really big, I just don't know if London can hang with all the big boys. Like, I think London is better than like all of these teams, like for sure, and they'll consistently beat them. But I don't think they have the firepower to beat these 6 teams, right? Like these 6 teams, 7 teams are like fucking crazy with like how stacked they are, and I don't think that London can go toe-to-toe unless the meta goes in their favor. Unsorted teams? It's fine. It's not a big deal. That's where I'm going to leave it, guys. That's where we're going to leave it. That's my power rankings for going into the playoffs. As I said, we will have a patch coming up in a week. Well, hopefully in a week. After the play-ins, I assume they'll start telling the teams and the players and then hopefully us what the playoff patch is going to be in the future. So we'll go further by then, because like if we end up seeing a massive nerf into, let's say like Xayah, that will flip the meta on its head. Like if Xayah gets nerfed, all of a sudden everything changes because we've seen the prominence of the Xayah Lucio Baptiste right now. And if Xayah gets nerfed pretty heavily, then it will change the landscape. We could almost go back to a Sombra, but then if Sombra gets nerfed, then all of a sudden like Sombra doesn't make sense, and that could cause a massive flip of the switch. On top of that, we have no idea the strength of Kiriko right now. Kiriko is a very interesting character. I've talked to a lot of coaches. I've talked to a lot of players from time to time. Pretty much everyone's sentiment aligns with mine in a lot of ways of, do you think Kiriko is going to be good? And almost everyone says, not really. She doesn't do enough. Like, she doesn't do enough damage in comparison to Zenyatta, Baptiste, and all that kind of stuff. She doesn't have any offensive utility for the most part. Her ultimate is very strong, but it's not a defensive ultimate, and it can be hard to use, especially in a situation where she is a dive support, right? She can follow her team, she can go with the Genji, she can go with the Winston, she can go with the Diva, but that makes her ultimate, in that kind of meta, it's going to be very dive-centric, and it'll be very hard to use your ultimate and use it to punish people, because the size is not enormous. So I'm curious to see how she's going to do. I don't think she'll be played as of right now, but I could be wrong. We'll find out. Ranked comes out tomorrow with Kiriko, and I'm sure everyone's going to be trying her out, and we'll really get a good gauge and a sense of how she'll do at the highest level. So that's it for this weekly recap. As I said, let me know who you guys think is going to make it out of the Western region play-ins. 2 teams out of the 4 will make it. Playoffs are coming around the corner. You should be getting hyped. Overwatch 2's alive. What a time to be alive as well. Much love. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing more stuff as time goes on. I've been doing some stream highlight videos on the YouTube as well. Check those out. Got a new editor. He's been doing a great job. They're really funny. They're a lot of fun. Appreciate you all. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.